Thank you so much for staying tuned to this channel. Welcome to yet another edition of Africa Discourse. I am Wilson Marshall. Today, it is all about education in Africa, changing the trend or reviewing the trend, reviewing the narrative. Don't forget about the UN Charter about education, a fundamental right of every child, every man, every woman, every boy, every girl. They have the right to education. But take a look at the circumstances bedeviling this continent. How do you view our education process? Don't forget that if we get education right, naturally, everything will fall into place. If you take a look at the statistics in Africa, the number of persons that are not, how will I put it now, not educated is on the increase. What are the factors leading to this? Nigeria is not ruled out of it. If you go to South Africa, also the suburb, they're not ruled out of it. You go to Kenya, go to Ethiopia, even when you go to the Tangere region where they have this crisis, Central African Republic, they are crying. What is really happening to the education sector? Is that the reason why African countries are far behind in global trends? All these and more, we want to take a look at today's installment of Africa Discourse. Here in the studio, I have a lecturer, a professor. Join me to welcome Professor Anthony Ijewere. Welcome to Africa Discourse.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. This is totally your field because you are almost at the apex, being a prof and all that, and I believe that you have it at your fingertips. What is really happening to our education system in Africa?
Well, it's most unfortunate that Africa is going through what they are going through today in terms of our educational development. Before doctors will prescribe drug, you know, they have to carry out what we call tests, and based on that test, then they now zero in into what treatment to give to a patient. So the same token, our educational system has a background that stinks, and stinks in the sense that the British, when they came in, they tried to force an educational system that is that rhymes with their own background, you know, and which did not really flow, because in Africa there are a lot of traditions, religious beliefs, you know, like African countries that are dominated by the Muslim religion. They believe the modern educational system they're against modern educational system because they believe that it's a taboo to their religious background.
You're talking about the extremists, right?
Yeah, extremists. Yes. You know, but it's common. In fact, Nigeria is suffering it. You know, they strongly believe it's against their religious background, and therefore they were not interested in modern education, and so they didn't buy the idea. And traditionalists also believe that, hey, this so-called modern education, in quotes, will alter their traditional beliefs, and the view of that they may not have a full grip of their children, of their people, and therefore they also rejected it. So all these are some of the problems that was associated with early part of education. And so each culture in Africa did not want the modern educational system to disrupt their tradition, their beliefs, their culture, their customs, and all that. So that was a problem that the British colonialists had in trying to influence the various countries' modern practice of education. You know, so, and it was after these periods that the world now became a global place, whereby there was no need for any country that wants to belong to the global world, you know, must must be seen to have a good educational system and all that. So if we take statistics, the Sub-Saharan Africa, at least talking about higher education, only 6% of Sub-Saharan Africa countries, had higher education, as compared to 26% of the global population. Then you also talk about UNESCO, where they prescribe at least 40% of the national budget ought to be, devoted to giving to education, the educational sector. Right. But our leaders, who in most cases before now they never saw anything, the beauty of education, especially when the leader maybe it's coming from this religious background where they don't believe so much in a modern educational system. And so when they are allocating a budget, remember some of our leaders in Africa, they came from military background. and therefore, they look at education from military perspective. We're also aware, even within our various domestic homes, some parents believe that the female should not have
access to education to a certain level.
To a certain level.
Right.
When they are mature, they say, my friend, it's better you go and marry and all that. So all these were problems with educational development, not just in Nigeria, in every other African country, because the experiences were very similar.
All right, I'll come back to you, Prof. Just join us right now in the studio. He is an educationist, talking about also a human rights activist, a political analyst. Jeremy, to welcome God sent, everyone said God sent, welcome to Africa Discourse. I really appreciate your coming. Okay, I'm just in between these two gentlemen, and we are going to be talking more on all this. Well, he has laid a good foundation for this discussion, talking about the reason why we're experiencing what we're experiencing in terms of education in Africa. There is a school of thought that has it that once there is poverty, or if there is poverty, inadvertently education always bear the brunt. How can you relate this to what we're talking about today? God sent.
All right, thank you. Let me begin by saying that there are so many challenges that is responsible for our backwardness in terms of educational development in the whole of Africa, narrowing it down to Sub-Saharan Africa. Let me quickly say that, yes, you can't rule that away. When a man is hungry, the first thing he thinks about is survival. And hence, the reason why, if you look at the Constitution, basic education was made compulsory, and primarily the government is saddled with that responsibility. And that's the reason why over the years we started seeing some countries trying to talk about the food program. All these are just ways to try to cushion the effect of hunger, because you can't concentrate when you are hungry, and reading alone takes so much energy from you. You can't grasp, you can't be focused when there is so much hunger. So there's no doubt about it that part of what has led to the setback of our educational development in Africa is poverty, generally speaking, across board. But be that as it may, poverty is not the only factor. Like I said, there are myriads of challenges, hindrances, odds that have stand against our educational challenges. Development in Africa. And one of them is, we can't rule that out, is the current problem of the world, insecurity issue. Today we are hearing how students are being kidnapped from schools. Okay, and believe me, no parent wants to expose his child to such hazards or to such risk, because I believe my child is safer under my roof than for him to go somewhere where he might be kidnapped. Now that again is another issue that have retarded or slowed the pace of our educational development in order for us to catch up with the global community. So the insecurity issue is still biting hard on the African continent. Then don't also forget that beside that, there have been various complaints over time. In fact, the bedrock of most of the strike actions we see today is poor funding. And the truth remains that education is a sector that needs so much of financial budgetary allocation. UNICEF has advocated that at least 40% of the nation budgetary allocation should go into education. But it may amaze you today that there are a lot of countries in the whole of Africa that are still going between 5 to 8% budgetary allocation. Now that is to tell you the gap, and that's the reason why you see sometimes some of this union body comes up and say, what is this? We can't go on with this. And let me quickly say this: any nation that wants to dream of a better tomorrow must put at the front burner its educational development.
All right.
It must be a critical priority.
Okay.
Not just an option.
All right. Now, people are like saying that the reason why we are having this backward trend in education is because of poor funding. Sometimes money be earmarked for education, but somewhere along the line is diverted to other purpose. Not only in Nigeria, you have issues also in these war-torn areas, crisis-torn areas in Africa, that funds are being produced for education due to the circumstances beyond their control, so to speak. On one hand, they're not able to do that which they ought to do in the education sector. Sometimes also they hit the blame on corruption. Prof, what's your angle on this?
Well, I want to look at it from different dimensions. The first question you should ask ourselves: who is the leader? What's his background? You know, because all this matters. If the leader is a military tyrant, you know, why do you think he will value education? He will naturally not value education. If the leader is a very strong Muslim who believes that education is a taboo, of course he will not be crazy about education. He will see it as a waste. If the leader comes from
if you use the term strong Muslim, we have some good Muslims that are strong that love education. If you're talking about extremists, extremists,
yes, you know, or if the leader is a traditional extremist too, you know, believe that the female folks have no business with education. Okay, in his educational policy, whether he has the best brain, professor in Ministry of Education, as Minister of Education, he will do the president's biddings. I beg, don't tell me anything about. Once a female is ripe for marriage, she should go for marriage. You know, so extremists will always have all those perceptions about education. Then you leave there. Then you talk about what is the what's the wealth of that very country? Do they have the money? When you have a situation where a country is always involved in civil strife, in civil war, you know, civil war is ravaging the economy. You know, for God's sake, they will be thinking about a good system of education. Rather, they'll be busy about how to save their head, save the head of the citizens, and therefore, education will suffer. You know, so these are some of the variables. Of course, you also talk about do they have a good system that they are operating, a good system of education they are operating? Because when you have a good system that is well cut out, well planned out, like this 6334 system that failed in Nigeria, it's a wonderful system, but was it implemented? Who are those implementing it? You know, so these are the issues. That is why it never succeeded. And so if you look at, you take all this into consideration, you now realize that educational system, especially most African countries, is a problem because of these factors I've just enumerated. And the only way we can solve this problem global practice.
Before we go into the solution, you talked about system operational in Africa.
Operational system, yes.
The system he talked about, I don't know, really dragging us backwards. He talked about system because people like system varies. If you talk about the system operational right now in Africa, is that the reason why we just can't go out there to do some research? Is that the reason why we just can't go out there to catch up with other countries globally? Is that the reason why we are backward when we talk about education in all its ramifications?
Like I said, the challenges are quite many. You know, there are a whole lot of factors that is responsible for where we are today. You know, before I dived into a little bit into our system, how it has affected us, let me remind you that in 2030, there is a sustainable development goal go 4 to be precise, that have said that by 2020, the number of out-of-school children are supposed to have been, if not totally wiped out, they are at least reduced
considerably.
Considerably.
Yeah.
But over the years, what has happened? Just take Nigeria as a case study, because we're also an African country. You know, it has escalated. Then they said out-of-school children were over 10 million. Now it's already over 13, I think shooting to 15 million already. Part of the reason is because of the political and social instability, you know, basically insecurity. And that is part of the reason. Then we also have to look at the fact that, just look at currently, there's a current research that said over is it UNESCO or UNICEF? Over 258 million.
UNESCO.
Over 258 million children, youth, and teenagers are out of school currently. Now, how do we now talk about
that? Is in Africa as a continent.
Africa as a continent. How do you now talk about the future as a country? See, let me put this point blank. There is no nation that can talk of a better tomorrow when it downplay on the importance of its educational system. Let me bring this to your attention. Some few years ago, I did a research, and I discovered that out of the 200 best universities in the world, about America alone house about 180. So America is not American by guesswork. America is American because of their solid educational system. Now, what's wrong with our system? 3 things went wrong. Number 1, if you look at the national policy of education, you discover that we have fantastic laid-out principles that hitherto would have driven us to compete in the 21st century. You know, an average child in Africa should have been able to compete academically and intellectually with his counterpart in America or Korea or what have you, in advanced country. But the case is different. It is said that a university graduate in Africa is synonymous or equated to a secondary school, higher school graduate abroad in terms of the exposure and the capacity development. Part of the things that have retarded our progress is the fact that, like I said before, there is poor funding. When there is a laid down principle, see, education cannot drive on lip service. We have to have a leader, like Prof has said, that have a passion to develop the educational sector of the country. Let me borrow a little bit from what is happening in our own state, okay? Not to be the mouthpiece of anyone, but just a little attention into the educational sector. We are seeing nations are even coming to Edo State to take templates of what the government is trying to do. Because education, when we talk about education, we are not only just talking about providing education for all, we're also talking about the quality, the standard. Education as it should be. Education as it should meet up to global standard. Part of the reason why we are where we are is because our curriculum is outdated. Many times there are no systems that consistently reveal the content of our curriculum.
We are coming to that.
Our students can play in the global world.
We are coming to that.
So
we are coming now. You just know he talked about curriculum because that was the next step or next question I really want to throw at you, Prof, because you are there in the system. Some of you know that our curriculum, like what you rightly said, they are outdated. They cannot compete to global trends. Hence, no matter how you sit some children, some youth, even some adults down in Africa, and you feed them with the concept or with the content of this curriculum, you are like a caveman compared to the modern trend. And that's what is happening right now in Africa. How can we really get out of this?
It's modern curriculum. For example, if we come back home, we had this curriculum for technical schools, believing that in fact, that's the essence of 334 system. Believing that, people who have skill or who have shown sign of skills, they should go to technical schools, you know, so that where they will develop skills, and these skills will become ready labor, you know, for the society. But the technical schools, were they equipped? Did the government actually go out there to ensure that these technical schools are equipped? To ensure that what is in the curriculum is actually enforced. This is the issue. It's like our constitution. They say we have problem with our constitution. Our constitution is beautiful, but the problem is implementation, and that's what is happening in all affairs of government. It's implementation. You see, our educational system have fine curriculum because the people who came up with the idea were brains from different institutional background. and they were doing it in pari passu with what is happening in global practice. Are you getting it? Like the point my friend raised earlier, that a graduate from Nigeria University ought to be compared with any graduate in the world. Reason, because we're basically operating the same curriculum based on what? UNESCO prescription. And that is why you see ASU will always argue that, the UNESCO said 40% of national budget should be invested in education. It's universal. It's not Nigerian, it's universal. So that is how they also picked issues, curriculum from universal perspective. But our problem is implementation. Right? If you look at a country like Korea, for example, right from the word go, children start playing with figures. They start playing with instruments that rhyme with figures and all that. And before you know it, their mathematical
inclination goes up.
Is developed. But are we doing that? Now, you see what's in our hand at the moment. Instead of us to be thinking about how to advance education in Nigeria, we are thinking about S-men attack, banditry, and all that. So we are not focused. And it's a similar thing that is happening in various African countries. We're not, so it's not a question of curriculum per se, but the issue is, are we settled? Have we met our basic needs of life to be able to now say, let's see how we can also implement the global practice of education in the world? I think that is the issue. That's where the problem is.
Not the curriculum. He said it's not basically the curriculum, but what is really going on. Even the ones we have, those some of them are old and outdated, not able to implement or even study to know the essence of the curriculum. Now for us to, have this spring shift, so to speak, to the next level in education.
Okay. Let me give you a little bit of explanation. You see, first of all, like I've said before, and I think Prof have also said that, if you look at our national policy of education, it's fantastic.
Yes.
Okay. Now, this is the problem with our curriculum. There is no consistency in review. Are we on the same page? There is no consistency. The consistency in review is what I am addressing here. Because the curriculum is not something you develop and you just let be. Over time, there is room for review. Let me give you an experience that I have. I was privileged to be a student of a certain expatriate or foreigners that came to tutor my association AFED in Edo State, from Poland to be precise. And I did a little course with them, online training. And just about 8 months or 1 year after that, Professor James Tully, the international patron of AFED, who happens to be the Buckingham University Vice Chancellor in UK, gave us a scholarship, picked some school owners, and said, okay, fine, let's train you on best global practices. Just about 3 Saturdays ago, I sat for my first semester exam. Then, myself and the few teachers and students that were picked from Edo State were discussing. And at the end of the day, we discovered that some of the things that the teacher training program from Buckingham University in partnership with AFED Nigeria is doing to us, we already saw like a replicate of them in the course we already did with Poland. You can see the connection. Now this is Poland and this is UK. They are already headed somewhere. And by that course, I can tell you now that there are some certain future of education that have become glaring. That meanwhile, one time, I am in research and it's something I love doing. Sometimes, what is happening in the global world, for the next 10 years, we are still behind in Africa. We are yet to catch up with where the world is going. For example, the world is talking about activity-based learning at the level of the primary and even the junior secondary and the nursery. But we are still busy with the traditional method of engagement, not the progressive method. There is the traditional school of thought, educationally. I read education in school. There is the progressive school of thought. The traditionalists want to maintain the status quo. But the progressivists always want to challenge what is there. Now, the review is consistent. I bet you, Winston, you are a journalist. If you go into investigation today, you'll be surprised to see that there are lecturers and secondary school teachers that are still using lesson notes that they used over 10 years ago.
Prof, is it correct?
You'll be shocked to see.
Prof, you have to come into this.
No, I'm not
you
saying
have to come into this.
I can tell you they are some. I can tell you they are. Oh, Prof is aware.
Prof
may not be among them. They are.
Because right now it's talking about lectures of more than 10 years ago.
I have had an experience. I went to school.
You know why? I thought about the same thing. He made a statement. That the state government has the beautiful program for education. Are you getting it? And this beautiful program is not government house at Osadebe that's going to consume it. It's going to be spread to the various schools in Edo State. And if government is doing that, which means government wants to be current about what is going on. And therefore, they are going to spread this thing to the various schools. So that Edo State will have an edge over many other states, not just in Nigeria, also in Africa. And I'm happy he said countries are coming to study our educational system. So which means there's improvement, which means we are not using old lesson notes.
Forget that we are dealing with Africa, not Edo State. This is Africa we are talking about.
All right.
Africa. Edo State is part of Africa. But to be more serious, we are saying that it's not just the curriculum thing. I think the National University Commission, they review these things over a period of time, and that is why you see in higher institutions, universities, there is what you call accreditation visit. And this accreditation visit, they go every 4 or 5 years.
Every 4 or 5 years?
Yes, to go and visit, to see if they are in line with the modern trend of doing things in higher institutions. Are you getting it? And any school, any university that did not live up to the standard, that program is cancelled until the university will improve, before they will come back for another visit. In fact, they will say no admission into that department or whatever. Okay? Until they will come back again to come and review and see if they have changed. All is in the spirit of improvement. And I'm sure at the tertiary, at the secondary level and all that, they also have a similar body who comes to review this.
Now you just hold on.
Poverty and the rest,
not to worry, we'll come back to that. You just hold on, because we'll go for a break. When we return, we'll start comparing education in various African countries. How come what is going on in Rwanda, educationally speaking, is not happening in major parts of Nigeria? How come we have higher education trade in Ghana when compared to some other African countries? All these and more, we'll talk about global practices in terms of education in Africa. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Thank you so much for staying tuned to this channel. It's all about education in Africa, reviewing the trend. And my analysts, they've been speaking from the heart of hearts on ways that are really impeding African education system to have this global practice, because the world, they say, is a global village. And if we're not in tune with the rest of the world, educationally speaking, we will be left behind. Some are saying we're already left behind. What's your opinion? What are your views? It's all about education today on Africa Discourse. And I have two gentlemen here in the studio that are really doing their best to tell you the reason why we are where we are, educationally speaking. I have to pause it because I have to go for that break. Please commence with your train of thoughts.
Yes, so you see, the National University Commission, like I was trying to say, normally have a review, and they've set a standard for universities. So after every 4 or 5, they come for review and see if that university is meeting up with the prescribed standard, which was globally, formulated, because the name university is universal, which means no university lives in an island of its own. They must maintain a standard global, and that is why there's what we call exchange program, whereby professors or lecturers from other universities can come to Nigeria and lecture, while Nigerians can also go abroad to lecture. That exchange program is there, So, and from time to time, there's this review of. In fact, in the university system, we don't just teach like that. We don't just lecture like that. We lecture based on what we call benchmark. Benchmark. I must follow NUC benchmark. You know, to lecture, to draw out your curriculum, to draw out your course outline and all that. Is general for all universities. And that is why when they come for a visit, they bring out your benchmark. Let's see if you are following what you are asked to do. And they even go as far as interviewing some lecturers. Sometimes they will say, hey, this lecturer is not doing his best. They can even advise, because they are directly responsible to vice chancellors.
Yeah.
The third vice chancellor will not want this person there because it's not living up to expectation. Please replace. They go as far as doing all that. You know, like when they came to us, they said, oh, you're operating entrepreneurship thing, the department, your director. I say, yeah, director. And I say, yes, but we are not, some of those practical things people are supposed to be, we are not seeing it on ground. You know, so you people should try and do that. Why are they saying that? Because they expect that there should be a standard that have to be maintained. So it's not led for the university to maintain such, and any university that is not living up to that standard, they sanction.
Okay.
They sanction.
They sanction.
Yeah, they sanction.
It's all about education in Africa. Reviewing the trend is all about global practice when you compare African nations to other nations globally. Let's take a look at what is happening right now. You mentioned mirrors of problem, poverty, extremism, yeah, and corruption. And right now, the bane right now of education and development is insecurity. If you take a look at some country, go to Chad, you get to hear about rebels fighting the newly elected leader or imposed leader. You go to Cameroon, also the Anglophone, Francophone, they choose to boycott a part of education because they're saying that the teachers they are giving to them, they're not used to what they are talking about. You go to Central African Republic, there's turbulence here and there. You go to Sudan, South Sudan, it's like the same old story. Go to Ethiopia, even the region of Tigray region, Somalia, they are having this issue. And hence, nobody's even talking about education. Like what you rightly said, the number of school dropouts, like, you know, expanding exponentially. Come on. With all this on the ground, can Africa catch up with the world?
Let me quickly say that it's sad. You know, there are some things you see happening in our continent, and sometimes you just wonder. You wonder if we are cursed or we are blessed. You know, because there are things, obviously, you wonder. Like, let me give you what's going on in my mind. A group comes up and say, no to Western education, we are Boko Haram. I mean, does that make sense? Okay, now, don't also forget that all over Africa, this same group have affiliates that shares the same ideology. Even go to Chad, Niger, or what have you, they share the same ideology. No to Western education. So you can also see the place of religion. How some religion extremism also have a way of affecting our educational development. You know, that's why I said the problem is a myriad of problems. It's quite many. And going from content development, content implementation, and our own embrace of education. Let me also come to another side that ordinarily we may not like to talk about. The issue of examination malpractice. Oh, come on, Winston. I just pray. You know, let me hang on there. You know why I said so? Parents today, we pay any houses that can guarantee their children quick results.
Some parents.
Parallel, yes, some parents, quite a high number of parents, not just few.
You have the statistics. You
will be shocked. I am a school owner, so I play in the educational field.
All right.
So I have first-hand knowledge and all of these things.
All right.
Even some of the high place school in this town, there's hardly any of the high place school that does free and fair exam. Let's do exam without any exam malpractice. Machineries are paid. These children are taught in the hall. We are talking about the reason why. Now, it has been said by Soludo and many educational experts how we raise upbeat graduates. And, you know, to some extent, I want to disagree with Prof. You see, there's something about educational outcome. There's difference between educational input and educational outcome.
Okay.
Most of the times, I want to judge by the quality of graduates that you bring out from the university. It's not enough to say NUC is coming to check and check and check. I went to the university. Okay, I know what I saw. I have a lot of mentees at a university. I'm not saying this applies to all lecturers. Neither am I saying it applies to all situations. But I can be bold to tell you that more often than not, we see a whole lot of watered down implementations. And when I told you that there are teachers, not only in the university front, in secondary schools and primary schools, they have outdated lesson notes. Lesson notes that are not being upgraded.
Prof, is it coming back to that? Outdated lesson notes.
I am not saying, listen, Winston,
yeah.
Education is trendy. What I mean is this. I was privileged to be in an educational meeting. Yeah. You know, I would like to review the results. And it was said that these were a team of people from Abuja. That they have been on the National Research Council, I'm talking about for the secondary and the primary now. For over the years, they have not been able to review the secondary school, this curriculum, they have been on them. The issue is they are not just manpower, the hands are much. These are the issues we are talking about. If you review the educational curricula in 10 years ago, I'm focusing on the primary and the secondary. Yeah. Now, 5 years after, it may be already outdated. That's why I use the word consistent review. So that we can catch up with the direction of the world. Okay. Otherwise, before we wake up, the world has gone ahead of us. While we are studying courses and cramming Plato theory and Aristotle theory that is not relevant to our modern day life, somebody is already thinking of invention, educational invention. That's the reason why I said it is a whole lot of big talk. Like, for example, we have to start looking at education in the interest of our children, in the area of their passion. Okay, that's one thing that advanced and developed countries have done.
Okay.
If you have a passion for football, you can have a degree on football and all of that.
Global trends.
These are issues. Okay. How do we catch up and meet up?
I will come back to you, God Saint. Now, if you take a look at Africa, some countries are already doing well in education. They're beginning to catch up gradually. You take a look at Rwanda, they're beginning to catch up. Go to Ghana, they're beginning to catch up. I mean, what really makes these countries different from other African countries?
You see,
are they waking up to the global trend right now? Talk about education.
You see, the issue is global trend, and we cannot just be generalistic by saying, oh, schools are using lesson note and not old lesson, outdated lesson note. We don't have statistics to that effect. We cannot use our personal experiences to say, oh, therefore, we don't do that.
But personal experience is important in this discussion.
It's part of it.
But you can't use it to
generalize. Yes, you're right about that.
You can't use it to generalize. As researchers, we can't use it to generalize. We have to be careful there. You see, like my good friend was saying, they have to be reviewing curriculum with 2 years, 3, 4 years, 5 years. I totally agree. But the issue is that the ones on ground, what have we done to ensure that they are effectively and efficiently implemented? I think the focus should be, what are the problems that are associated with implementation of this curriculum? It could be the latest in the world that is passed from schools to school, but do they have what it takes? In other words, do state government pay teachers a certain due? All these are variables. Do they pay them a certain due? Did they equip the labs very well in modern times? Did they equip the lab, especially students who are in science? Are the labs well equipped? These are the issues. The educational policy, the vote, the budget for educational policy, are they implementing it? These are the issues. So you can have the best curricula, but if these basic ingredients necessary for development of education are not there, it's useless. What are the qualifications of teachers that are implementing this curricula, especially if you look at some northern states that are educationally disadvantaged? What are their qualifications? Did they go to standard schools? We've seen situations where a teacher who read religious study or Islamic study will be teaching business courses and all that, be teaching mathematics and all that. These are the issues. So can we implement the latest curricula? The answer is no. A teacher has no business with any subject area. That's not what even he read in the university. But because some schools are looking for cheap material, they cannot employ as many teachers as possible, a specialized area. One teacher will be teaching so many courses that they have no business with. And as a result, they may be giving the student the wrong idea, the wrong information. So even if you give that teacher the best curricula to teach the student, I mean, it will end up not implementing the right thing because it's not an expert in this area. So I think these are the tickling things we have to look at the background. It's not just, I agree that the latest curriculum is important, but who are those implementing it? And what is the role of government, to ensure that this thing is done effectively?
All right, now,
these are the issues.
Okay, now, I'm just some countries in Africa, like, you know, making a serious headway in terms of education. Is it because they've been able to fine-tune their system into global practice? Others are still lagging behind, or they've been able to embrace the new method in education, talking about technology, computers, internet connectivities, and all that?
Let me quickly say that the society will go the direction of the leader, the arrowhead.
Society will go the direction of the leader?
Yes, it will always go the direction of the leader. When you have a leader that cannot even produce a school certificate, you know, that leader possibly has been exposed to different level. I said a leader.
Yeah, of course, continue.
Because you already
because something just happened to my throat right now. So please, let's continue. Yes. So please, let's continue, please.
Now, like I was saying, when you have a leader that there are so many issues surrounding his educational development, and over the years, this person has been in public office, then you can tell that this person already have a mindset that this thing does not matter. We have seen in this state how a certain Ministry of Education got it with fire, and people were pointing accusing fingers. We have also seen in this state how, like a magic, somebody was suddenly made a permanent secretary of, I think it was environment then, and people were wondering, who is the qualification? What is? There were so many noises all about that. That's why I said the society will go the direction of the leader. There was also a time in our own locality where it seems that rascalities and, in quote, what we call Agbero boys seems to be in charge. They were the domineering factors. That's why I said the society will go the direction of the leader, of leadership. Let me quickly say this. I quite and absolutely concur to what Prof was trying to address. You can't do without the drivers. I mean, there are people that will drive the system. And when those people are crippled, where do you get the motivation to drive the system? Now, 3 things have happened that I think is putting Rwanda, Edo State ahead. Number 1 is partnership. You know, the governor was ready to partner to get a template. Just not a few months ago, even Lagos State had to come to Edo State to learn, to get a template. You know, we were ready to partner to know how is it done. Okay, beside that, there was also room for constructive criticism. There was room to get into the global world, as the internet, to introduce technology to modern days learning. You know, these are things that have been able to help this government to beef up the educational standard. And again, no matter how much you try, when the system, education especially, is on the phone, you can't get the best.
You can't get the best if it's not well funded.
Yeah, you can't get the best.
Interesting. Now, still talking about global practice, because right now they say the world is a global village. You talked about teachers coming in, and of course you are attending lectures via internet connectivity and the rest of them. What does these 2 countries have, or some countries have in Africa that other countries do not have? Come on, we are the same Africa.
It's an educational system. You see,
the same dark color skin,
how
almost the same intelligence. So what is really going on?
No,
how come they are different? Even some universities also in Nigeria, they are doing well. They've been able to connect globally, and they are there soaring on the same template, but they are very, very few. What makes them tick and others crawl?
You see the case of Ghana, Rollins, you know, when the system, not just educational system, the system was completely roughing. You know, Rollins came into a draconian approach to ensure that, you know, leadership in the country stands. That's the point he was making earlier. Who is the leader? Leadership stands, and that you do things in the right way, in the right form. And in view of that, those elements, those politicians, they were considered as elements of retrogressiveness. They were all lined up, and they were showing the other part of the world. You know, and so everybody now stood up. You know, thereafter the system was cleaned up, and it had a focus a mission and vision as to what he wants. As from now on, to be quality. You don't do things anyhow again. You must do things the right way. And so the educational system also benefited. You know, everybody now had to sit up and ensure that they do things the right way. And that is why the thing also, you know, vibrated to the various school systems there, you know. And that's why, to some extent, some Nigerian politicians even send their children, their awards to Ghana to get the best of education. It's not that they are more intelligent. For God's sake, like you said, we're talking about leadership. What's the quality of leadership? And ever since Rawlings left there, you could see the quality of their leader. When I say leader, I'm talking about president. You know, they're well-educated people and all that. And that thing is reflected. If by God's grace, tomorrow I become president of Nigeria as a professor, you know, I will, that attitude, that perception, I will pass it down to the educational system. I'll say no, Nigerian education has suffered over the years. You know, I will now allocate more budget to education. Okay. And I will now ensure that any school
will vote for you.
All right. Now, from what he just said, is now linking education to politics, so to speak. We're about commenting our dissent on this discussion. Does it have anything to do with political terrain?
Yeah, of course. I think with everything we have said, that is glaring. You know, part of the things that is seriously challenging our educational system is because it has also been politicized. Okay, somebody thinks, like, let me give you one of the reasons why I value Governor Obaseki. Okay, although it's not a state discourse, it's because to invest,
this is relevant. Why not?
To invest in education is not a political score point, so to speak. It is not an area where you can say, hey, this is street light. I'm not saying it's wrong to provide street light. This is infrastructure, gigantic. Education is not a profit-oriented venture. So to see a governor that will be ready to shut his door away, and don't also forget that when you invest in education, more often than not, you are touching the life of the downtrodden. Let me give you an example. Who are those in the government schools in Edo State, if you are to take Edo as a case study? You know, these are people that they are not from where to do home, but their voice is in their education. Let me quickly say this. Part of the reason why we may not be able to change our narrative is because when people live in a society where they believe they can cut corners, the educational system becomes devalued. When somebody thinks that I don't need to have a master's degree or to qualify to get this job, I just need to campaign for the governor, make sure I have a good rapport with his political fathers or people that influence the polity, then it's not about how qualified I am. I mean, there are situations we have heard behind back doors, unofficially. When some people in position of authority will say, I'd like to work with this person, they'll say, who is he? Who is political father? Nobody knows. You know, the idea is because it was, for the first time, I saw a governor that advertised for position of commissioners. That was in his first tenure. I saw that people went, they were bidding for, I was shocked because then it used to be just handpicked. Okay. These are all the narrative we need to change.
All right. Change narrative right now. How do we get out of this?
It's very simple. One, we should make it our first prayer point that we should have the correct leader in position. Because when we have the correct leader, the thing will filter down to the system, educational system. Then the budget. Okay, it boils down to because the man who is there is the one who approves budget now. It boils down to the
Why are you squeezing your face by saying this? What kind of
I'm happy about it. I'm sad about it. I'm sad about it. You see, you know what is so painful? Okay. We have so many educated people in Nigeria. But the people you get into position, it is funny. I don't want to start mentioning names in this program because not allowed. It is funny, the people you not get there. How will such people implement the educational system? How would they ensure that curriculum is practiced? Like my place, Immaculate Christ International School, we are doing a lot. We use computer to teach children. We don't write A for apple on the board and draw A for apple.
All right, we're not going to that dimension right now. You're going. No, it's also be subcharged. You'll be subcharged. So please. Anyway, we have great schools in Africa. We have great schools in Nigeria, and of course we have IUO also. It's one of the great schools that we have, no doubt about it, because of the global practice we are talking about. But how can the rest of African countries key into what this citadel of learning know how to do? Briefly,
I want to strongly advocate that we have a national reward system for committed teachers.
Okay.
You know, I don't know, for me, all these GFRO, there's this national award we have in Nigeria, and there are too many. That does not touch a teacher that willingly accept a transfer to teach in the rural villages and put in his best. It does not make sense to me.
Right.
So we must visit our reward system. Our national recognition system.
Okay.
We must get him down to the teachers, because they can kill the system in the classroom if they are not well motivated.
All right, thank you so much, God.
Let me quickly drop this.
Briefly, our time is up.
No nation have a future without a solid educational system.
Thank you so much. Prof, you're going to have the last line discussion.
Leadership is very important, because no matter what we say, the best, if we want to operate the best educational system, the leadership must be right, because it's whatever comes from the leadership, you know, because if the leader of a country, the president of a country believes that education is very important, then any individual, personal advisors or what have you, educational experts, when they not give him advice, is the most likely to take it. You can organize the best international conference and pass the paper to the leader, to the president. He will just, you call his one of his messenger, personal, I better drop that in there, you know, because he's not interested. So leadership is the thing.
It's the key. All right, thank you so much, gentlemen. I appreciate a wonderful analysis. Viewers out, if you take a look at the statistics of how education right now is suffering in Africa, is going to beat you whole. We're talking about millions of children dropped in out of schools due to one circumstance or the other. UNESCO is crying, they're shouting, the way you continent, the way you guys are going, there is danger ahead if you don't change your attitude towards education. Don't forget that change begins with you and I. Do the right thing, and education will eventually meet up with global practice. Bye for now.